Hey there. You ever catch yourself like actually stressing about outliving your savings in retirement?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you always hear like, make sure you save for retirement, but it feels like there's got to be more to it, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
It's one thing to know you need to climb a mountain. It's another thing to have the map and the gear and the actual, like, how-to.
exactly. It's like showing up at the airport with like a vague idea of needing a plane ticket.
Uh-huh.
So today we are diving deep into this article, How to Avoid Running Out of Money in Retirement, which really resonated with me, especially since I feel like I've been in that boat recently where it's like, oh, shoot, I should probably figure this retirement thing out, like
Yeah.
maybe not wait till the last minute.
Mhm.
And the first thing that this article really stressed was like the importance of starting early. And I feel like we hear that a lot, but it's like, okay, but how early? Like, are we talking like few years before retirement or
No, okay, like now.
like right now?
Like yesterday.
Oh gosh, okay.
Yeah,
So like way before you're even thinking about like trading in your work laptop for like a beach umbrella.
exactly.
Okay.
The
Yeah.
earlier, the better. And it really makes a difference.
Right, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So like give me an example. Like how much of a difference does it actually make?
So let's say you start investing $500 a month at age 25, right? By the time you're 65, with like an average 7% return, you're looking at over $1 million.
Yeah.
But let's say you wait till you're 35, same contribution, same return rate, you're looking at less than half of that.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
big difference.
That's huge. So, okay, that's definitely like a wake-up call for my inner procrastinator.
It's like, okay, even if it's just like a small head start, it makes a big difference down the road.
Absolutely.
So, okay, how do we even begin to figure out how much we actually need to save, though?
Hmm.
Because I feel like everybody's like retirement dream is different. Everybody's like cost of living is different. So how do we actually like quantify that?
Well, it's definitely more than just like this magic number you need to hit. You have to consider things like what age do you want to retire at? What do you think your living expenses are going to look like in retirement? And how much can you expect from Social Security?
Okay.
So it's really about putting together your own personalized roadmap.
Okay. So where do you even begin with that?
Well, good rule of thumb, and I know it can be kind of overwhelming when you're first starting out, but a good rule of thumb is trying to save between 10 and 15% of your gross income.
And honestly, anything that you can put in there consistently, it's really about consistency over time.
Right.
Like we were saying before, it's like building that pyramid one block at a time.
Okay, so building those like good savings habits early on is like key.
Absolutely.
But we've all been there, right? Where it's like, I know I should be saving,
Yes.
but actually making it happen is like a whole other thing. It's like, I always think about like those time lapse videos of like plants growing.
Right.
And I'm like, yeah, that's what I want my savings to do.
Exactly.
But in reality, like, how do we actually make that happen?
Yeah. Well, you don't need a green thumb for this.
Yeah.
You just need like good financial habits.
Okay.
And one of the biggest things that this article stressed was like automating your savings.
Okay.
So it's not even like something that you have to think about. It's just like
Yeah.
you set it and forget it.
Like putting your bills on auto pay.
Exactly.
Okay.
So it's not really like willpower at that point. It's just like a system.
It's a system. Okay. So speaking of systems, the article talked a lot about like using those tax advantaged accounts, like our
Yes.
401ks and our IRAs.
Right.
And I feel like I've heard about these my whole life, but I feel like I'm still a little bit fuzzy on like how they actually work.
Yeah.
Like what is the difference? And
They can be very confusing.
yeah.
But basically, these accounts are designed to give your savings a tax break.
Okay.
So with a traditional 401k or IRA, you're contributing pre-tax money, which means that you're actually lowering your taxable income right now.
Oh, okay.
And then that money grows tax deferred, and you only pay taxes on it when you withdraw it in retirement.
So you're kind of like delaying the tax gratification or whatever.
Exactly.
Okay.
Now, with a Roth IRA or 401k, you're actually contributing after-tax money.
Okay.
So you're not getting that immediate tax break.
Okay.
But the beauty of a Roth is that that money grows tax-free.
Oh.
And then when you withdraw it in retirement, it is also tax-free.
Oh. Okay, so which one is better?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
It really depends on your own individual circumstances.
Okay.
It depends on whether you think you'll be in a higher tax bracket now or in retirement.
Okay.
So if you think you're going to be in a higher tax bracket in retirement, a Roth might be a good option.
Oh.
If you think you're going to be in a lower tax bracket in retirement, maybe a traditional makes more sense.
So complicated.
Yeah, and it's hard to predict the future, right?
Right? Like who knows what tax brackets are even going to look like
Exactly.
in like 20 years.
Exactly. That's where a financial advisor can really come in handy.
Okay, so speaking of financial advisors, like, when is it too early to talk to one?
Never,
Yeah, really?
never too early. I think a lot of people think like, oh, I need to have like a certain amount of wealth before I even like consider talking to a financial advisor.
So,
But that's really not the case.
yeah.
Think of it more like going to the doctor for a checkup.
Okay.
You don't want to wait till you're like seriously ill before you go see a doctor, right?
Right.
Same thing with a financial advisor. It's better to get ahead of things.
So you'd rather see someone, like, preventively
Exactly.
and, like, once things have already kind of
Going off the rails.
gone off the rails. Yeah.
Okay.
That makes sense.
And they can give you advice no matter where you are in your journey.
Hmm.
So even if you're just starting out, even if you're like well on your way, it's always a good idea.
Okay, that makes sense. So we've talked about like saving consistently, using those tax advantaged accounts, but then the article also talked about diversifying your investments.
Yes.
And I feel like that's another one of those things where it's like, okay, I've heard that, but what does that actually mean?
Right.
Is it just like, don't put all your eggs in one basket or like,
Yeah, essentially.
okay,
It's about not putting all your eggs in one basket. It's about spreading your money across different asset classes.
okay, so like what are some examples of those?
So you've got stocks, bonds, real estate,
Okay.
things like that.
So it's like having a safety net in case like one area of the market kind of takes a dip. Okay, so tell me a little bit more about like the differences between those. Like what are stocks, what are bonds?
Okay, so stocks are generally considered to be like higher risk, but they also have the potential for higher returns.
Okay.
So those are good for like long-term growth, especially when you're younger,
Okay.
because you have more time to recover if the market takes a dip.
Right.
Bonds, on the other hand, are generally considered to be lower risk,
Okay.
but they also typically have lower returns.
Okay.
So they're good for preserving capital,
Got it.
especially as you get closer to retirement and you don't have as much time to ride out those market fluctuations.
So it's about finding that balance of like risk and reward.
Exactly.
Okay. Are there any other like investment options that people should be thinking about?
Sure. So, real estate can be a good one, but it's less liquid than stocks or bonds.
Yeah.
And then, you get into some more like niche investments like commodities, precious metals,
Right.
even things like art or collectibles.
Okay.
But those often require a lot more specialized knowledge
Yeah.
and can be even riskier.
So it sounds like there's a lot to consider when it comes to like investing.
There is.
But I kind of want to go back to the basics for a second
Sure.
because the article also talked about budgeting.
Yes.
And I got to be honest, I've always been a little bit intimidated by budgeting.
Yeah, a lot of people are.
It feels very like restrictive.
Right.
It just feels very like, I don't know, restrictive.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be, though.
Okay.
You can think of it less like a diet and more like a spending plan.
Okay.
It's really just about like understanding where your money's going
Yeah.
and making conscious choices about your spending.
So it's like having a roadmap instead of just like driving around aimlessly hoping you're going to reach your destination.
Exactly. You got it.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense. And then speaking of like not running out of gas on that road trip, the article also mentioned having like an emergency fund,
Yes.
which I feel like that's something that we always hear about too, but it's like how important is that really?
It's so important
Okay.
because, life happens.
Right.
You could have a sudden car repair. You could have a medical bill. Anything could come up.
Right, like those unexpected bumps in the road.
Exactly.
Okay.
And having that emergency fund can really prevent you from like derailing your retirement savings plan.
So it's like your safety net to like keep you on track. Okay, that's a good way to think about it.
All right.
So we've talked about saving, we've talked about investing wisely, we've talked about budgeting.
Yeah.
Let's talk about debt.
The D word.
Yes.
Yeah. So this article did not shy away from talking about debt.
Right.
And for good reason.
Yeah, because it feels like that's something that can really like hold people back in retirement.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because if you're carrying a lot of high interest debt into retirement, that can really eat away at your savings.
Yeah, it's like this feeling of constantly playing catch up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so it's really important to try to prioritize paying down that high interest debt, especially things like credit card debt,
Right.
before you retire.
Okay, so prioritize getting that debt down as much as possible.
As much as possible.
Before you even hit retirement. Okay, so we've talked about saving, investing wisely, budgeting, managing debt. Is there anything else that we should have on our radar as we're kind of like getting closer to retirement?
Yeah, so don't forget about withdrawal strategies
Oh, yeah.
because you've worked hard, you've saved diligently.
Right.
You want to make sure that that money lasts throughout your retirement.
We don't want to be eating ramen noodles after all of this planning.
Exactly, exactly. And so this article actually mentioned something called the 4% rule.
Okay.
Yeah,
What is that?
so it's this guideline that says you can withdraw 4% of your retirement savings each year in retirement, and you should be good to go.
Okay, but is it really like a set it and forget it kind of rule?
It's more of a guideline
Okay.
because, everybody's situation is unique.
So it's not one size fits all.
Not at all. There are so many factors that come into play, like your health,
Yeah.
your lifestyle, even like market conditions at the time.
Right.
Those can all impact how long your money's going to last.
Okay, and don't forget about like inflation too.
Oh, yeah.
Like what, $50,000 buys today?
Right.
Might be a very different story in like 20 years.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's why it's really beneficial to work with a financial advisor, especially as you're approaching retirement, because they can help you develop a personalized withdrawal strategy
Okay.
that takes into account your specific circumstances and goals.
So it's like having a co-pilot to help you like navigate those retirement years.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes me feel a lot better. Well, this has been such an eye-opening conversation.
It has.
I feel like we went like way past the usual like save for retirement
Right.
and really like dug into the specifics.
Yeah, we really got into the weeds.
Yes.
Which is good.
It's important. So for anyone who's maybe feeling a little bit overwhelmed after all of this information,
Sure.
what would you say is like the one thing that they should take away from our conversation today?
Start now.
Okay.
Like that is the biggest takeaway.
Yeah.
Even if you can only start small, like every little bit counts.
Okay.
So whether that's, setting up a budget, automating your savings, or even just like scheduling a consultation with a financial advisor, like take that first step.
Start somewhere.
Exactly.
Okay. I love that. I love that advice. Well, this has been awesome. As always, it's so fun to like dive deep with you and like get into these really important topics. And hopefully this will give all of our listeners out there some things to think about and some concrete steps that they can start taking to really feel empowered about their financial futures.
Absolutely.
So until next time, stay curious, everyone, keep exploring, and we will see you in the next deep dive.